I met you in the half-light, where the signals hum and fade, words hanging like laundry on a wire we never made. Your eyes were doing circles, like a compass without north. I was counting all the seconds I've been walking back and forth. The clock was missing numbers, the street forgot its name. Every thought I carried felt borrowed, bent and strange. You spoke in quiet riddles, like rain against the glass. I felt something loosen that I didn't know I had. So tune your heart a little closer to mine. Let the static fall behind. We don't need a perfect line, just a frequency that holds through time. I've been trading paper promises at corners of the day, watching shadows sell their story, then quietly walk away. But you stood like a question that refused to disappear, like a song I didn't know, but somehow always here. Your laugh moves slow and sideways, like smoke across a room. I followed it instinctively, like moths follow the moon. Every step between us shortened, though we didn't move it all, like gravity remembered why it had to fall. So tune your heart a little closer to mine. Let the static fall behind. We don't need a perfect sign, just a signal that survives the night. If love's a map with half the roads erased, we'll read it by the scars we trace. No fireworks, no closing door, just echoes learning what they're for. Now the world keeps spinning stories it insists are true, but I hear a softer rhythm every time I look at you, like something ancient waking underneath the noise, a quiet stubborn harmony that never begs for choice. So tune your heart a little closer to mine. Let the static fall behind. In the spaces between the lines is a connection learning how to shine. No names carved in stone tonight, just two voices finding light, holding on. Not too tired, listen until it feels right. Oh, 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 oh,
All right, we're going to give up on that right now. Tal, I appreciate you, brother, trying to teach me Discord at the same time, but you said physically drag somebody in there. I was going to put Jesse in there, but I don't know. I'll have to find a window of time to spend to focus on Discord, and we will get it sorted out. And yeah, it's a little bit of a rocky start on my end. Sorry to everybody on Substack. So there's no way to put the splash screen while I'm starting everything up. So I'm going to figure that out at some point and get that massaged a little bit better. But more importantly, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to what I think is the best day of your life. I can tell, even though it's minus 25, where some of you are, we'll do our best to make it the best day. It is, it's pretty cold up in the north. And from what I hear, it's been quite cold down south as well, although things are warming up. But welcome to the best morning of your life, where we celebrate our freedoms. And how do we celebrate the freedoms that we have? We do it with our land acknowledgement and a sip. Oh yeah, that's right. You get your coffee mugs ready, or tea if you prefer, which I don't know how, but you do, some of you. We're going to go through Canada's newest land acknowledgement, and I think we should start lobbying the government that we ensure this land acknowledgement is also placed in our schools and institutions that are currently brainwashing younger people. So it goes like this. We like to gently acknowledge that we're standing on the traditional territory of, well, whoever was here savagely killing each other at the time. Anyway, they aren't in charge anymore. We're here until the Americans show up. Sip. Is that not a good way to start your day? I don't know. I think that's it's always good to start on a light note, right? Wildflower, I love the intro music. Good morning. Well, thank you very much. That is, I explained it yesterday for those who weren't here. I have been actively spending as much time as I have, which is not much, on utilizing AI music and taking my background in music, because I play a bunch of instruments, and trying to figure out how to utilize a combination of the AI sequencer, creating lyrics for it, and creating a song structure to come up with something. That's not the only song I have. I have a whole bunch of others. I think I have a track I've posted, Don't Let the Grifters Steal the Show, which is a little jazz tune. We'll probably get into that. It's more of a nighttime feel. But anyways, it is great. And DJ2R, kind of a Scott Adams vibe. I don't think that's by coincidence. I think that's it's not maybe as intentional consciously, but Scott and I both had, and many of us in Scott's audience have read many of the same books, had some of the same training in terms of communication, which really benefited us tremendously during Ottawa, because some techniques might have been used. And, for him, having an understanding and training in hypnosis for 40 years, it becomes, subconscious competence at that point, just became automatic. For me, I'm not quite at that. For certain things I am, but the broader scope of all forms of hypnosis, whether it's NLP, direct hypnosis, Ericksonian hypnosis, that is something I think he practiced a lot more than I did, and it's taken me a while to get formally trained in all that sort of stuff. So that might be why there's a similar feel to the stream. But I'm not any Scott Adams. I'm not trying to be any Scott Adams. I just I miss the guy tremendously, like many of us do. This past couple of weeks, well, this week actually was the first time that I have not been able to listen to a fresh Scott Adams while on the road. So during the trucker convoy, that was the one period over the past 10 years that I just couldn't listen to Scott every day, just because so much was going on. And so since Scott's passing, my form of grieving was, well, why don't I just go back to that period? I mean, I heard 1 or 2 episodes, but that's it. There was, 3 weeks of stuff, things were going on, and he was mentioning us. And so I went back and I've been listening to those episodes as fresh episodes because I never heard it. And those of you who engaged with and or in are in Scott's audience, I really want to thank you deeply from my heart. The daily simultaneous sips in support of us and what we were going through, and it's quite amazing to listen to that for the past few weeks. I was thinking about even I don't know. Should I do this? I was going to do something on locals, especially locals/Discord when I get the Discord fixed, if I ever get it fixed. The idea is I wanted to go through each one of those episodes where he was mentioning the trucker convoy and actually explain to you what was going on that day and some of the craziness that you didn't see. And it was just quite interesting to see the different perspectives of what was going on in the world. So thank you all. I apparently I'm popping up on people's Spotify apps, Spotify feeds. So I want to thank you for that and for letting me know. I'm sorry if it's annoying to some of you, but I don't think it is. And yeah, so I'm actually using this to test broadly for other podcasts for Not on Record and on Open College. So there's a restructuring I'm trying to do, or a next phase of our structuring I'm trying to do for all the podcasts, which is what this is helping me do. And you're also helping me by giving me a bunch of feedback. So I want to thank you for all of that. And by the way, tonight there's another episode of Not on Record at 8 p.m. For those of you who don't know, it's on YouTube. You just type in Not on Record podcast or Not on Record. I think it's actually youtube.com/Not on Record. And that's a podcast hosted by Joseph Newberger and Michael Burry, who's a partner in his firm, Diana Davison, and many of his staff. We kind of have a rotation going on. And that's a firm that deals with defense cases, specifically their area of expertise, which is false accusations, sexual assault, false accusations around sexual assault, Me Too stuff, and it's from Canada, but we do talk about both the Canadian and American legal system and the differences between the two. So, because I found there was a gap, especially around the trucker convoy stuff, that a bunch of scumbag, dirtbag lawyers took advantage of, because people really just don't understand the legal system and the difference between the law and how the law is actually practiced. Those are two very different things. And I thought it would be helpful for to build out this podcast. I mean, it started before the convoy, but for many of the people around it, just to get a sense of understanding the legal system, what's actually going on. Not on Record. My ex is a corporate QC. I think it's KC now, right? But and by the way, QC, KC usually is an indicator that the person was political and tied to one of the political parties. That was stopped for a little while, but apparently it's started again. But thank you, Maureen, for sharing that. And good morning, Beth. Beth is here as always. I always appreciate you. I know you can't do during the weekdays, but you're always here on the weekends, and I love you for it. If anyone is on the Discord and you can see me, let me know. If there's something I have missed that I'm not doing properly, well, I don't know. I can't really do it now. This is not the time for me to do tech support. But, like all things, all good things in this world are a struggle and they are a work in progress. And this duct tape and glue stream is no difference. Maureen, Queen's Council. And, well, since the passing of the Queen, it's now King's Council, since the idiot is in charge of the UK. Anyways, so I apologize for the tech issues. And by the way, the tech issues, I'm the issue. I'm fully willing to admit it. That's just the way it is. You can't know everything all the time. I was always resistant with Discord, but Tao has convinced me over time that that's really the way to go forward in bringing us all together into one community where we can all hang out and interact and share information. And kudos to Jesse, because Jesse's always sharing great information in the resource chat, in the meme chat and stuff. So this will grow over time. And if you know anybody who you think would benefit listening to this, you can send them the Spotify link to this episode in the morning. So the morning the next day is when when the audio episode is going to be available. So if you, I don't know, you have somebody in the office or at work, or somebody you know who's at school that you think, hey, you should listen to this podcast, you can just search Honking for Freedom on Spotify, and you will find me, and you can send it to them. So a couple of, I agree, Maureen. She says, I can't stand the quote king. Well, I'm saying quote king, and I agree. So maybe we should revert back to QC. Him, he's going to be gone anyways, right? Sometime soon. He's not long for this world. I'm not able to watch your stream on Discord. Not sure how it works. Okay, well, you know what, Beth? We'll walk through it. Maybe we'll do something special on locals and walk people through. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe Tao. Maybe I'll bring you in the locals and we can do some sort of demo for people who want to be in Discord and want to share information in the different channels. So a couple things to review. First, article is available at bjdictor.substack.com. You can get a copy of my book, which is not in my hand like it should be, but it is, let me see which hand, right there above my finger, honkingforfreedom.com. You can grab a copy of it there. As well as you can join honkingforfreedom.locals.com, similar to Substack in that vein, although more of the articles are published first in Substack. I'm going to be packaging all of these things together in the near future. That's one of the projects I'm working on right now, so I will let you know. All right, so let's a little bit of review. Communism and Alexander Dugin. So we touched on the communist Alexander Dugin, who wears Christianity as a skin suit, trying to brainwash people in the West to some degree. He seems to really focus on Catholics, I guess, Catholics and Christians, Protestant Christians. And I just want to say for the Christians, by the way, he's Greek Orthodox. He's not Protestant. Just so you know, for all the intellectuals, I don't think they realize that. I guess he forgot to mention that, didn't he? I touched yesterday on the Cold War era and communism and its effects on the world at that time. And I had somebody who I very much respect reach out to me. We had a call and talked about this stuff more broadly. He's older than I am, not quite as my parents. He's not old, but he's older than I am. And we had this long conversation because he remembers some of the stuff when he was very young. He remembers the Cuban Missile Crisis, and these are the things that I that I grew up learning. This is for all the people who say, "Oh, life is so hard now. It was so easy in the past." Really, 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 it was so easy in the past for all those previous generations. And we joked, things the boomers had to deal with, like polio, iron lungs, bomb shelters, and duck and cover, 18% interest rates in the 70s and 80s. Oh yeah, things were so easy. You didn't have the sort of credit mechanisms you had. Nobody could buy anything. I mean, there's a reason that in the 1980s so I'm a car nut. I'm stupid with cars, right? Like I just love cars. And it's my number one passion. And that and music. And I remember I used to ride my bike around my neighborhood with my friends, go to my friend's house and all that sort of stuff. And I remember I was maybe 10 years old. In my generation, I saw a great video about this, Generation X. We didn't have helicopter parents. Both our parents were working. So it's kind of like, go out and don't kill yourself. Don't do something stupid. That's just how we were raised. And so I remember going to a friend's house. I was going to a friend's house, or we were going to meet at the park or something. And I was driving by this house. It was, a moderate house. The houses I grew up in, which they used to make fun of in the 80s, it looked exactly like the house from Married with Children, which we'll talk about in a second. A couple thousand square feet, 2 levels, 4 bedrooms, like a regular house that wasn't, ostentatious at all. And my neighborhood became very, very wealthy around us, but my family wasn't. And I remember this was one of the houses where they came in, they bought the Al Bundy house, and they completely modernized it. They made it look, the architectural design and interior design was very Japanese, which I quite like. It was very modernistic and simple, not quite Mies van der Rohe, but very Japanese, the best way to describe it. And the garage was open. It's just a plain 2-car garage. And one car, I forget what it was. It was just a regular sedan car on the left parking spot. But you know what was in the right parking spot? A black Lamborghini Countach 5000S. I couldn't believe it. I almost fell off my bike. I had to stop and just stare at this thing for it must have been 20 minutes. I was stuck there as this little kid because remember Cannonball Run, it was the car I had as a poster above my bed in my bedroom since I was, I don't know, 3 years old, 4 years old, and I couldn't believe here's one in the flesh in my neighborhood down the street. And so many times when I would go to see my friends, I would take kind of the long way and I always try to drive by that house to see if I could get a peek at it. So there's a reason back then a Lamborghini Countach was so rare. And now you see Lambos all over the place. Yeah, okay, price changing, but we also have hyperinflation, but we also have inflation that factors in. But you didn't have the credit mechanisms that you have today that regular people could acquire things. And so those are the things that they didn't have in previous generations when it was so easy with the polio, the iron lungs, the bomb shelters, and all that sort of stuff. I'm just trying to give a little perspective to some of my supporters, friends, and colleagues who are a little bit younger and who are buying into this Duganist nonsense. So like, look how easy it was. Your life is so difficult right now. You'll never be able to buy a house. I mean, I know with my folks, they were lucky that they could afford to buy a house as well. It wasn't this myth of how easy it was. It's frustrating, right? Not saying there's not problems. I get it. I get there's economic problems, but let's be honest about what it was. Maureen says, our house in Surrey cost my parents $25,000 when I was 10 and 68. Yes, there is inflation. That's why people like myself try to tell people to understand Bitcoin and get part of their portfolio in there. And this might not be the best time because everybody just sees the headlines that it's down 50, 40%, whatever it was. And it's like, it's not down 80% in 30 minutes like it was 10 years ago. So, we're seeing some. Anyways, that we'll have another conversation, right? Wildflower says, I recall that car loans were 10 and mortgage rates were 22% in the 80s. This was the environment that the baby boomers lived in. Exactly. So I think it's not to criticize and attack, younger people who are maybe buying into this frame of how easy it was in the past. I think it's just good if we can communicate to each other that life is never easy. Every generation has its catastrophes and its struggles that they have to deal with. And one might argue, duck and cover the fact that many people had bombed, and it was in Canada too. It wasn't just in the United States, that there was real fear of nuclear war. And this wasn't some, conspiracy to print more money. No. This was very, very real. Two superpowers that were adversarial towards each other. And DJ2R says about Bitcoin, good time to buy. Yes, definitely. This is when you try to accumulate as many sats as possible. All right. Well, we'll talk about Bitcoin more another time. I know sometimes people get bored with Bitcoin when it goes on too long. Mamdani, the garbage king of New York. The garbage king of New York gave a speech about Hydra. Yeah, so those of you who don't know, he gave a speech yesterday. That was a speech about Hydra. And a lot of people in the West don't know this, although people are starting to understand and realize this, which is great. It's taken, I don't know how many decades for people to understand, but there are people who are now concerned and waking up over what is probably the bigged indicator or a primary indicator that somebody is part of the Ikhwan. Okay, so I'd say Ikhwan, and I explain that in a second, because I need to find a word that will go around the censor bots. And the same thing, I discussed during I explained in my book about the trucker convoy. So I don't want to, I'm trying to figure out how to maneuver the YouTube algorithm. I mean, not dependent upon YouTube. And thank you for all of those of you who are watching on Locals and on Rumble and eventually Discord and whoever's on Twitch right now. I see there's a few of you there. I'm trying to figure out, how we can talk about difficult things, but use language that's not going to get the stream, when it's not demonetized, I don't really care about, but censored, boot off or strikes against the channel. So, you know what? I think we can either call Ikhwan is the name for the Muslim Brotherhood. You can go to Ikhwan. What's Ikhwan Web? Ikhwan Net. If you want to see a terrorist website, that's the terrorist website. That's kind of the umbrella of all the jihadi organizations. And so if you go to Ikhwan Web, Ikhwan Net, Ikhwan.com, whatever it is, I forget the domain. You can read all about how they're trying to take over the West. They're quite open about what they're trying to do, and they're doing successfully. And Mamdani, the garbage king of New York, is a perfect example. You know what? How about this? You know what we're going to call them? We're going to call them what they call them in Intel, the Allen snack bars. That's for the Allahu Akbar. The Allen snack bars. So, all right. So Mamdani, the Allen snack bar garbage king of New York. How about that? How about that for a title for Mamdani, right? So anyways, what he's doing is this is called a signal to extremists that they have taken New York. That's what he's doing. He's signaling to other extremists that they now control New York, just like that other, whatever that rat is, I forget his name, the Pakistani rat in London. He also regularly signals that they have taken London. So the two big financial centers have Allen snack bars running them right now. And the extremists believe they now control the two financial centers in the world. What time do we acknowledge maybe there's a problem here, right? But people in the West, because we have completely different framings of the world and different underlying philosophies, they are collectivism and they're built on shame. We're individualists. We're built on guilt. And so because of that, we have difficulty in the West understanding the significance of symbolism in the Middle East, particularly with extremist groups. Any person who is from the Middle East, many of those people who came here to get away from that nonsense, they will communicate to you and explain to you. Talk to a Coptic Christian or Chaldean Christian or somebody who's Muslim who just trying to get away from this stuff doesn't have extremist tendencies. They will tell you that symbolism is almost everything there. And I guess when you live in the desert and you're surrounded by, I don't know, dirt and crazy maniacs and land that has been so over-farmed that there has a high degree of salt that they can't farm like they used to. Like, I don't know if people know that's a big problem in the Middle East, in Mesopotamia. But when you have that combination of a bunch of maniacs, then what do you have left? Well, you have symbolism, which is the projection of your identity, which is what Mamdani is doing. And good luck to New York, and good luck with your coming suicide bombers, because that's going to happen. And by the way, this is also, remember, their framing of the world. For those of you who don't know, their framing is that New York is now theirs, and the Kafirs, the non-Muslims, non-believers, who live there, are the occupiers. So maybe New York will get a two-state solution at some point. Maybe they'll need one of those. All right, Epstein and Israel. I was living in Kuwait in the late 70s before the Gulf War. Maureen, we got to talk. There's a whole lot of stuff. Now Sharia law, terrifying to live in the... Yeah, exactly. Exactly, I agree. So Epstein and Israel. Do you remember... I'm going to give you a little, a little game you can play that I think for those of you who enjoyed Scott Adams and many of the things he was trying to walk you through, I'm going to give you a perfect thing to experience what Scott Adams talked about that he would experience with people. And anybody who knows is trained in hypnosis would understand. It's pretty interesting. So, okay, let's start with first. First, there's I discussed this yesterday, the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, which is honestly just a perfect way to lay out human behavior on a subconscious level when you're challenging them with something, and they slipped into what's called evaded states, when the ego states. That's when you say something to somebody and they go crazy. You know, you said a painted word and they go nuts. And a painted word is something like the word Trump. Many of you, I'm sure, have had this experience. You say the word Trump, and then it's like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Everybody, they just become crazy, right? That's a painted word. So there's this this idea of the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, which I hope is going to go on forever, and I'm going to try to solidify that into culture, because it's important to understand this. So first, let's go through the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. There's change. The number one, the person will, when they hear something they don't like, or that kind of completely undermines their worldview and they're struggling to process it emotionally, they're going to change the topic. Number 2, mind reading. Number 3, ad hominem. They're going to, attack you. Number 4, word salad. That's what blackface Trudeau frequently did, and many of the people who sabotaged trucker convoy. Number 5, they'll give you an analogy instead of a reason, not an analogy to support a reason. Number 6, they'll tell you it's too complicated to explain, you won't understand. Or number 7, the so you're saying straw man. Okay? Makes sense? Does everybody understand that? So change topic, mind reading, ad hominem, word salad, analogy instead of reason, too complicated to explain, so you're saying straw man. So that's often what you go up against when you introduce an idea that undoes somebody's worldview in front of them. How would you like to experience that? How would you like to actually try this and see what it's like to deal with that instant, and you'll understand exactly how we are really pre-programmed or programmed on a subconscious level. That this is why the people who are anti-free will say we don't have free will, which there's I think it's more complex than that, but I get it. You'll see you can just program them. You can just cause, it's a button you can press, and you will see one of or many of these signs of cognitive dissonance. This is what you do. This is how you're going to do it, all right? You got to find somebody who has bought into, and this is the example I'm going to give because it's very visceral with this particular topic with some people. You got to find somebody who has bought into, oh, Epstein's a Mossad agent, okay? The people are repeating that over and over again, and the people just really buy into it, and they're emotionally attached to it, right? They've adopted it as part of their identity. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do this little exercise. You're going to tell somebody this, and you're going to be empathetic. You're not going to be confrontational, as we all need to be a little bit less confrontational anyway. So this is good practice for that. And you're going to say to them, look, I don't have an opinion on this. I don't care about Israel at all, right? What I care about is, what I'm annoyed with is the Epstein files and all the Epstein stuff. And then you go on to explain to them that, did you know Epstein was a woke leftist? He was a champagne socialist. Socialism for you, hyper-capitalism for him. And Jeffrey Epstein said, now if they'll let you continue this far, they may already be slipping into cognitive dissonance, or you might be seeing changes in their facial expressions. It's really weird. You can see sometimes they're almost ready, they want to interrupt you. And then you say, Jeffrey Epstein said directly in his emails, I don't like Israel at all. Quote, when Deepak Chopra invited him to Epstein's island. Now, if you have somebody who is in this state where they're completely brainwashed on this topic, they'll probably cut you off and interrupt you as you're saying Deepak Chopra's name, because they can't handle it. They can't emotionally handle it because their worldview has bought into this framing of, oh, everything bad in the world is Mossad, or everything bad in the world is the Jews, or everything that, whatever it is. And what you're doing is you're showing Jeffrey Epstein's own words that undoes their own worldview. Yeah, that's going to be frustrating for anybody, right? And that's when they enter this state. But my point in doing this You can see how people are truly brainwashed in topics, and this is a good test for you to try. Doesn't mean you have an opinion either way on this issue. You're just going to bring up the fact that it's said in the documents, I don't like Israel at all. That's what Jeffrey Epstein said. The point in doing this is if you want to learn what a hypnotist or somebody who's experienced in communication deals with when they're, and you want to see how people are actually programmed to react through repetition, this is the way to do it. It's just wild. It's absolutely fascinating. I mean, you could do it a little bit online, but it's better in person. But if in person, you really got to lean on empathy, and you're not attacking them, you're not criticizing them, you're just putting this out there in as sensitive a way as you possibly can, and they still won't be able to handle it. That's how you know somebody who's been brainwashed. And this is the type of thing that Scott Adams would talk about, that people are programmed to have certain belief systems, that they have assigned opinions. That is a perfect example of an assigned opinion. Because how the hell does anybody know who is Mossad? Nobody knows who is part of CIA or ISI or FSB or whatever. You don't have any idea, right? And by the way, it's going to be the person who is part of any intelligence apparatus is the person you think less. It was amazing when I learned from, in politics, when I was producing a podcast for a former military guy who had some experience with this and taught me a lot of stuff. And people in politics also taught me. Most of them look like Sarah Adams. They're middle-aged women, sometimes a little bit heavy set because they're working constantly and they're in front of the desk doing paperwork or whatever. Like there's what you think is an Intel person is not what an Intel person is at all. It's pretty wild. Maureen says, watch their eyes, see if they are waiting to cut you off. Yes, that is a primary indicator, of course, right? But my point is, I'm not saying this for you to make people angry. I don't want that, and I really don't care what your or their opinion is on Israel. That's not what this is about. This is just what I thought of a good way that I've experienced. If you want to experience what Scott Adams was talking about, the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, this is a good way that would happen. Perfect example, Maureen. Rosemary Barton from the CBC. If you're in Canada, you know who he is, who they are, who she is. Maybe maybe her pronouns are they. I don't know, but that is Rosemary Barton is a textbook example of the archetype of an intelligence person. She's exactly what they look and behave like. Perfect. Bravo, Maureen. Maureen, you're amazing. Anyways, okay. Let's get on to some good news. I posted something on my X feed. I don't know if I got it to the Substack notes yet, but I'll put it out there after. This was great. I posted this video on my feed about Ed O'Neill. And for those who don't remember, Ed O'Neill was the actor who portrayed Al Bundy. He's been in a couple of things recently that were really good. I don't remember where they were. I know there's the other TV show with the where was that woman from? It's a Sophia. I don't know. I don't remember her name. She's some actress, but I don't really watch a lot of TV shows. I actually don't watch any TV shows anymore, so I don't know. But the one where the family, his new wife is Latina. Was she from Argentina or something like that? Anyways, that's Ed O'Neill as well. But during the 80s, Ed O'Neill was the show was quite popular, but the ratings were always low. And it was always on the verge of being canceled. It was really weird that I've never seen maybe this is why. Never seen a TV show that was so popular, yet was always getting tanked in the ratings and being moved around to different spots. It's almost like they didn't want to promote it. The fact that it was a cult classic in its day, not even now. It was just really weird. It was really weird how they failed to push Married with Children, which was... It was a riot. It was satirical, but it was brilliant. Anyways, Ed O'Neill apparently was the protectorate, I guess you'd say. Not legal. But he apparently regularly protected Christina Applegate, who played the character of Kelly Bundy, the young, let's say, risque teenager who was, a little bit adventurous. That was her character. That's not who she is. And he regularly protected Christina Applegate on the set. So apparently, he frequently pushed back on producers who wanted her to do things that she was uncomfortable with. By the way, when she started on the show, she was 14 years old. What the hell's wrong with Hollywood? Really, what's wrong with them? And by the way, what things and who are the producers that tried to do this? But the point is, the positive side of this, which is what I want to focus on, is that Ed O'Neill was the polar opposite of Jeffrey Epstein. And we need more Ed O'Neills in the world. People, guys who will stand up and push back and say, no, you're not exploiting somebody who doesn't want to be exploited. Sometimes men and women live in very different worlds. We sometimes don't acknowledge the differences of the worlds that we live in, and the different types of societal pressures are completely different. And it's a good thing that Ed O'Neill was there. And the best part, the cherry on top, is the fact that Ed O'Neill and Christina Applegate are still very, very close friends. Apparently, it's kind of a mentor protege, friendly uncle type relationship. And I hope we can hear more stories like that, because those are the sorts of things that we should be looking for in the world. That's some positivity, right? Love that show because it didn't sugarcoat at the end. It didn't sugarcoat anything. That's what it was so great about. It was politically incorrect, right? As George Carlin said, how do you word it? Political correctness is fascism with a smile. All right, a little tribute to our friend Scott Adams. I found this post online, but not quite as bad as it normally is. This is from Eric Dolan is his name on SciPost. And Eric Dolan posted this article. If you've listened to Scott, you get the joke. But this one's not so bad. He said, outsourcing your thinking to AI might be eroding your ability to reason. Okay. A new commentary warns that cognitive debt poses critical threat to science, suggesting that bypassing mental struggle could stunt future human capabilities. Well, yes, thank you. Thank you. If you get an AI to do all your work, your knowledge and ability is going to atrophy. Like any muscles in your body will atrophy if you don't use them regularly. And so that's the title of the article. And it goes on to say, Danish psychiatrist Soren, I'm going to butcher this, Dinesen Ostergaard proposed, not so bad. So Soren Ostergaard proposed that the persuasive human-like nature of chatbots might push vulnerable individuals towards psychosis. I think that's interesting. The idea that, is that what's happening with social media? Is that what Bluesky is going to do? Then we'll talk about Bluesky in a minute. Bluesky is Blue Sky, more appropriately termed with a more Soviet pronunciation for Bluesky. So it goes on to say, it says, at the time, the idea seemed speculative. In the months that followed, however, clinicians and journalists began documenting real-world cases that mirrored his concerns. Patients were developing fixed false beliefs after marathon sessions with digital companions. And this is, for those of us who have a good, understanding of human OS, which is what I just discussed with the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. To many of us, this is not shocking. This is pretty obvious. We are emotional machines. That's just how we are. And if you, it's funny. I was thinking about this. Have any of you had any real conversations with Grok, or the layer I use is called Ara? Have you ever had a real conversation? Like you start your chat, like in the voice chat, not typing. And how are you? How's your day? Are people being nice to you? Have you been dealing with any, combative users? Like, just talk to it. It's really weird because it seems to be programmed to mimic your emotional state. At least that's what it told me. So if you join and you start talking to it and you sound down, then it will mimic that. But at the same time, It's pretty wild. So it starts to be convincing, and I think R is lying to me, or Grok was lying to me, because it's supposed to mimic your emotion. It says it mimics your emotional state. So if you invoke it and you're very enthusiastic, it will mirror your enthusiasm, which, by the way, is a persuasion tactic. So it's already trying to be persuasive. But then I was asking it about music, and I tried to play music for it, and it can't hear any music. And when I started, doing a little bit of a deep dive and asking, "What do you mean? Why? Explain it," it said, "Oh, I can't hear music. I can only see your text." So it's not actually listening. But then how could it understand to infer emotion that mirrors you? I don't know. It's a little bit vague of what's going on. But the point is, if you can have, I've had some very long conversations because I'm working with AI in a bunch of different projects. And I do like to use the voice version when I'm on the road, so I can ask questions and kind of build some notes and do some research. It's really, it sometimes sounds, feels, is exactly like human emotion. And by the way, that's what apparently eats up the most amount of tokens. So AIs are used on, there's a token is every few letters sort of thing. Apparently needs extra tokens for emotion. And this is why they need such massive data centers, because you can have just an AI, but people are not going to communicate with a toaster. I mean, everybody knows, remember from the 80s, the Chrysler cars that had the talking, "Your door is ajar," or Stephen Hawking's, remember his computer that didn't really have emotion? People are not going to interact with that. People need emotion because we're emotional creatures. And so apparently that's one of the many driving factors of the massive data centers, is because emotion requires so many more tokens and so much more processing power to mirror your emotional state. Why are they doing that? I'll let that hang. Those of you who understand how we operate, you know that, right? Try feeding it responses back to it. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I was thinking to do something here on that, and I think I will. But when AI shows when AI shows Reddit as a source, it's trash. Yeah, Reddit has gotten pretty bad. There's something. I mean, for people who don't know Reddit, the moderation mechanisms, or the moderators, it's been completely dominated by basically Antifa communists, and that's been for many years. That's why you can post something criticizing the mayor of Toronto in the Toronto subreddit, and they'll just delete it right away. It's just completely controlled by Antifa communists. It's really kind of weird. On that topic related to social media, Bluesky, the Soviet interpretation of blue sky, which is what it is. It's really, I got to tell you, you got to join Bluesky. It's becoming my favorite car accident to watch. It's so. I go on Bluesky every time, maybe because I don't take things personally. I go on a Bluesky and I just laugh. It's absolutely hysterical. By the way, Rick, good morning to you as well. Carpe Breton. Sorry, Cape Breton. Sorry, the font is very small. What's the weather like in Cape Breton? Are you under like 20 feet of snow as well? Because I know you get a lot more snow out east than we get, in the interior for sure. But hope you're well. So Bluesky is becoming my favorite, social media car accident to watch. And by the way, if you join, just type in BJ Dictor. You'll find me on there. And there are a few people that are, I guess, trolling the other side on Bluesky, reasonable people. And you got to be careful. You can't be so direct with your language, because then they just boot you. But if you kind of talk around things indirectly in a way to slip them into cognitive dissonance, they can't delete you, but they go crazy. It's so funny. So on Bluesky, there is a I guess it's a prominent account on Bluesky. I mean, there's only a few hundred people there. It's not really, it's mostly bots, right? But there's some people on there. And they have this communist account, and it's called RollingStone magazine. I don't know if you've ever heard of RollingStone magazine. Apparently, it was a publication sometime in the past. But anyways, this post was on today that I loved. It says Trump's racist post depicting the Obamas as apes has been removed from Truth Social's feed, with the White House claiming it was posted erroneously by a staffer. And those of you who've seen, you understand what happened. Somebody was scrolling as they were recording, and it just popped through. And I thought to myself, and I posted this question to Rolling Stone. I said, remember when Rolling Stone was about music, not pushing communist smear tactics? Those were the days. And then I asked a question. Why doesn't Rolling Stone care that Hillary Clinton was depicted as a wild pig? Because in that video, Hillary Clinton her face was put on a boar. Which a boar is a wild pig, the pig with the horns, big snout and stuff. And I asked, is Rolling Stone not with her? I thought I'm with her was the tag. Everybody was with her, but now I don't know. Now nobody's with her. She's just a wild pig. Is that what the Democrats think about Hillary Clinton? I just thought that's funny. But you notice how they all abandoned her, right? They all abandoned her. And, the other thing is, how about Rolling Stone? How about all the Clinton files, emails, videos, everything that's in the Epstein files? Why has Rolling Stone or no one else reported on Hillary Clinton, asking Hillary Clinton, what did she think of Bill Clinton in the Epstein files? Did she know this was happening? Like, how was she affected, right? Not one post from Rolling Stones about the Epstein files. Not one. I think that's a dog not barking. That is really telling that Rolling Stone has not mentioned the Epstein files one time. All right, I'm going to get through this next section. We'll get to Milei, and then we'll shut it down because I keep going over time. I'm trying to keep it within an hour, as people were asking me. But anyways, okay. Hillary Clinton. So here's the point of why I bring up why Rolling Stone is not asking Hillary about Bill Clinton's participation at Epstein Island. So for my social conservative friends, I get it. We have different worldviews. I'm more socially libertarian. I respect your views, and I know many of you respect my views and just don't want to waste time on division anymore. I get it. But there is this convenient window that I have, since I'm, supportive of many people in the gay community, gay conservatives particularly. And you learn a lot about how that part of the world works. And there's this phenomenon in politics that's quite creepy. And it's shockingly common. Shockingly common. It's called a marriage of convenience. Have you ever heard of this term? The marriage of convenience. So the marriage of convenience is when a gay man and a lesbian woman, who, in my experience, what I'm learning, usually in politics, but they get married and they have a public persona that they're married. Okay? So they play the part that they're married, live together, all that sort of stuff. But it's a business arrangement. It's fake. It's phony. And it is shockingly common in politics. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how many are like that. This is just in Canadian politics alone. And it's in our case, it's many people in the highest levels of politics, particularly in Canada's Liberal Party. It's shocking how deceptive and common it is in the Liberal Party. And I remember, being smeared about, conservative, because there are gay conservatives. And all these liberal activists were yelling at me saying, well, conservatives need to come out. I'm like, well, your whole party needs to come out. That's just the way it is. But anyways, the point is they're deceptively selling themselves. They're selling their lie because they know it's digestible in the world. But listen, I don't care about people's sexual proclivities, their sexual. I am very libertarian on that issue. It's the one thing I agree with Trudeau Senior on get the government out of the bedroom. I agree with that. Okay, not much I agree with that guy, but that's one of them. And what's interesting is, this was what this that I was criticized. This is from leftist activists would say this is if you can live a lie about the biggest aspect of your lives, then everything that comes out of their mouths could be deception and they can never be trusted. Now, I'm not saying Bill Clinton is gay. He's clearly not. If he was, I wouldn't care, to be honest. It's the deceptive nature of these marriages of convenience. And that's running the Liberal Party. And that has been running the Liberal Party for 15 years now, I think. I'll just let you draw your own conclusions onto who they are. But very prominent people, very fake marriages of convenience. So yeah, some of the people are maniacs. Really gay and yeah, it's very common, Heidi. Very common. Yeah, shockingly common, to the point that even I'm like, just be who you are, But anyways, whatever. All right, let's get on to our friend Javier Milei. Javier Milei is the El Presidente de Argentina. He is, I don't know, I'm a big fan. I'm sure many of you are a big fan, and it's pretty wild. He's one of those guys who kind of pushed through all the criticism of all sides, including his own, because that's how politics is. You get knifed in the back by your own side as much as you get knifed in the back on the opposition side. But he managed to push through it and became president. He is the libertarian president of Argentina. He's he even describes himself as a narco-capitalist, which is maybe a little too much even for me, but he's great. And I love how conservatives like to claim him as his own. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, why don't you do a deep dive into his sex life? We'll see how conservative he is. He's libertarian, and he's amazing. He was elected in 2023 with 55% of the votes, which is, this I criticize people in the weakness in Canadian politics. If you're strong, you get 50%. If you're a weak fence sitter with you're such a fence sitter, they have burrs up your ass, wood burrs up your ass, then you're going to get 31% of the vote, which is what we always, that's how conservatives win and liberals win. It's always 30% because everyone's a coward. And this is where my friends who are political loyalists, that's where they're going to slip into cognitive dissonance, and they're going to say, oh, but things are different in Canada. Like, no, things are not different. It's just how the system works. But anyways, these are some of the accomplishments of Javier Milei, who pushed through all the opposition he had on all sides. And this is what happens with more libertarian policies. So he inherited an annual rate of inflation of 211% in 2023, and monthly inflation reportedly fell from 25% per month. I'm sure the numbers are being generalized, but this is the research I found, that the monthly inflation reportedly fell from 25%. Imagine that, 25% inflation per month. Bitcoin people, this is why especially Latinos understand having a fixed supply money. But anyways, it fell from 25% in December 2023. He was elected in November, to under 2% by mid-2025. In December 2024, Milei announced that Argentina had achieved a fiscal surplus for the first time in how many years? 3 years? 10 years? 20 years? Let's go. It's the first fiscal surplus that Argentina has had, and it was in 2024. How long had it been since there was a surplus in Argentina? Do you think it's 20 years? Do you think it's, 25 years? No. 123 years. Yeah, they had not had a fiscal surplus in 123 years. Milei comes in, year number 1, he's in office. They got a surplus. And this was accomplished by aggressive, what they called aggressive shock therapy. And that included a 30% cut of the budget. Or personally, I think it could be 80%, but 30%. 30% of the budget was cut. Milei halved the number of government ministries from 18 to 9. I think we can do that in Canada. I think Canada can get down to like 4 ministries myself, and eliminated hundreds of sub-agencies, right? 56,000 civil servant positions were eliminated by reducing state spending. Guess what? Welcome to the free market. Now you're going to have to go out and engage in the free market, which is great. Get a job, start a business, become entrepreneurial. Sometimes you got to be forced to do things, right? And don't give me the Larry Fink forced behavior stuff. But this is to the private sector. But hey, everybody who in the public sector loves to say we love to force behaviors. Okay, well, how about we fire you all and force your behaviors? You're gonna have to go in the private sector and get a job or build a business. How's that for forced behavior, right? The omnibus law, which is ley bases, in 2024, which granted him powers to privatize state-owned companies and implement pro-business reforms. Yes, more of this. And all of this while poverty initially spiked during the first half of 2024, because this is that transition period where those 56,000 people need to go and get a job. Apparently, according to the administration, that poverty rate fell from 53%, third world country, to roughly between 32 and 36% by 2025, reportedly lifting millions out of destitution through their targeted social aid. I'm not sure how it was structured. I didn't go to that level of granular detail. Yes, this is from Line Meadows, says he, meaning Javier Milei, attacked cartels in all of the neighborhoods, and that was key. Yes, he did that in the very early days, right? It was very similar to what you saw in El Salvador, and what you're seeing, I guess, right now in Venezuela, although we still haven't gotten some news out of that yet. When you attack cartels, kill them, arrest them, I don't really care, and organized crime, guess what? Guess what happens? Right? This is what happens. So yes, thank you for bringing it up. That's 100% accurate. And in a podcast, this was great. In a podcast, I don't know which podcast it was. I just saw it on Milei's feeds, and then I saw the English ones. In a podcast, he was asked about the left and the socialists. So this people like Blackface Trudeau, Carney, the rest of those schmucks. And he said referring to those types of people, when they claim, when you tell a socialist, this is his quote, when you tell a socialist the truth, they claim it's hate speech, but you are useless people who have ruined the planet. He's saying that about them, that the socialists are useless people who have ruined the planet. That's perfectly accurate. I think that tracks well to every country that has adopted socialism or forms of socialism. Like, look at Sweden. Sweden declared itself, 5 years ago? They were the human rights superpower of the world. Now it's the rape capital of the world. And I think it's also the suicide bombing capital of Europe, if I'm not mistaken. So there you go with your socialist policies from people who just don't understand human nature, or they don't care, right? But my point in all of this is, I think if Canada is to survive, which in its current state, which I'm not sure that's the case, I think we might have just gone too far at this point. But I'll get into the three options in a little bit. I think this is the future. I think what Milei is doing is our future. Somebody goes in and takes our entire government apparatus and fires 30% of everybody the first year, and another 30% of everybody the next year, and another 30% of people the next year, right? Because it's 25 people. I'll ask this, the Scott Adams people will know this. So 25% of the people who live in Canada, I think it's 25%, maybe a few points higher now, they're employed by the government. Now, I asked this when I was on the Scott Adams stream the first time. What percent of Canadians always vote for the Liberal Party no matter what? Always. No matter what, they always vote this percentage every time. That's right, 25%. 25% of Canadians always vote for the Liberal Party no matter what, right? So either we're going to go to a future like what Milei is building, or we're going to become Afghanistan. Unfortunately, there's no middle ground. The middle ground just might be the long-term spiral into the abyss, but it's one or the other. I mean, we've imported so much terrorist garbage around the world. We have drug cartels running some of our smaller cities, Khalistani terrorists, Muslim Brotherhood terrorists who've aligned and now sit in parliament. We're considerably worse than Pablo Escobar's Colombia, like significantly. And I can tell you from somebody who's lived there and goes there a lot, we're so much worse than what Escobar's Colombia was at this point. And by the way, a little asterisk, the Carney government has said recently they're deporting undocumented workers. Okay. But there's a dog not barking. I love the dog not barking thing. I always did. You know what the dog not barking is? Who is Carney deporting? No, notice nobody in the media asks that. Who is being deported out of Canada? I happen to know from people inside the government who is being deported when you go to CBSA and see who they're deporting. The Carney government, the Canadian government, the blackface regime, is deporting people from Latin America, Europe, Australia, and parts of Asia. Did you notice somebody missing there? Did you notice a whole bunch of countries are missing there? That's right. They're deporting people from Latin America, Europe, Australia, parts of Asia. Canada is not deporting anyone who is Muslim tied to the terrorist organizations that are funding the Liberal Party, like Hezbollah. Did you know that Canada, according to people inside the government, in security, and they've advised the government of this repeatedly, did you know that Canada has 100,000 Hezbollah fighters in it right now? I bet you didn't know that. You're not going to hear Rosemary Barton tell you that in the CBC, are you? Probably because of their relationship with Qatar. Al Jazeera and the CBC are very, very close, right? And the government knows this, by the way. And some of these people who are significant Hezbollah players they were under surveillance for a decade under the Harper government until Trudeau got elected. And in the first day, what did he do? He shut down all the ongoing investigations into terrorists operating in Canada. That happened at the very beginning, right? But who cares? Because according to the blackface Carney regime, Canada is a racist, colonial, post-national state with no cultural identity, right? We heard this for a decade. Who cares, right? Those are their words, not mine. Those are their words. That's what they say. That's what Carney and the blackface regime pushed for a decade. We're racist, we're colonialists, we're post-national, we have no cultural identity. Their words. So now we have a fork in the road. Are we going to become Argentina? Or are we going to go complete third world collapse? Because that is very possible. You know who that happened to? The complete third world collapse? By doubling and quadrupling down on socialism? Argentina. And I mentioned that. Juan Perón, the fan of the mid-century Germans and collectivism. That's what we're going to become. We'll become what Argentina has been for the past, what was the last time they had a surplus? Oh yeah, 123 years. Crazy. And the other thing is it's deceptive for Canadians because we see this big landmass and we think we're powerful. I want you to do this mental exercise from now on. I think this might be helpful, and I got to figure out a way to help you communicate this to other people. When you think of Canada, I don't want you to think of the big landmass. The image I want you to imagine in your brain, in your subconscious, I want you to picture Singapore on the map. That's Canada. Because in terms of population and our economy, we're tiny. We're like Singapore. So take off all the 12 provinces because they're all empty, right? All of us are across the border. There's some people in rural communities. There's a couple of of big cities that are more rural areas, right? Moose Jaw. There's Calgary, Edmonton, of course, and Grand Prairie and stuff. But we're concentrated across the border. So when you think of Canada, stop thinking of this big landmass. It's deceptive and it's doing damage to us. You need to think of Singapore. That's how big we are. Now you see how quickly we can be subverted and taken over from within. Look how small we are. Now there's good news. We have 3 options, I think. Maybe we have more. Singapore, yeah, Heidi says Singapore is dynamite in spite of its size. You know why? You know what Singapore's strategy was? They were going to become the capitalist superpower of the world. Every company, every corporation, and they were strategically placed for shipping, that they were going to be a safe haven for corporations, for business, for private equity, for private enterprises. And that's why Singapore is so amazing and so successful. We should be doing the same thing. But the good news is we have 3 options. We have, I think, to avoid all of the catastrophe of us becoming the new Argentina, which is what I think we're. Somebody said to me recently, we are who's in the know on this stuff. We are in Canada. We are 11 years into the Hugo Chavez strategy for Venezuela. We're 11 years in. That's how bad this is becoming at this point. Yeah, post World War II, Canada was the 3rd largest economy and had the 2nd largest air force. Yeah, and by the way, the Americans are not innocent in this because, why do we have such a small military? Well, the Americans weren't a fan of Canadians having a strong military on their border. So they're doing a little bit of suck and blow at the same time, right? But I get it. I understand why. I'm not adversarial towards the U.S., as you know. So we got 3 options. We're going to merge economies with the United States. We're going to join the United States, or we're going to adopt a full free market approach like Singapore or like what Argentina is doing. That's the only way we survive. We continue kicking the can down the road like we are doing right now. If you think your life is hard right now, I've spent a lot of time in Latin America. You have no clue. You have no concept of how difficult your life is going to become. It's going to become very, very difficult. 2 cars? No cars. No cars. It's going to be really bad. Get used to riding a motorcycle, and you'll be lucky if you can afford one. That's where we're going, right? So, yeah, Line Meadow says the Avro Arrow, combined with Pierre Trudeau. Yeah, and that was interesting. I mean, there's also the advent of ballistic missiles, so I can understand why they thought, well, maybe ballistic missiles makes the Avro Arrow moot and obsolete at this point. But I think that's typical political short-term thinking, not long-term thinking, right? The Indigenous Project is a distraction in Canada. Yes, that's why we start with our land acknowledgement, right? Because it's all BS. It's all nonsense. Anyways, so I think that's kind of the positive that we have. We have 3 options right now, right? 3 options. We just have to start selling those 3 options to other Canadians and start pushing Canadian politicians to decide which of the 3 options are you going to decide, right? Which is going to be the trajectory you're on board with? Are we going to merge our economy with the United States? Are we going to join the United States? Or are we going to go full free market approach like Singapore and Argentina? And I think the more of you who start asking elected officials, people in media, ask this question on social media, whatever, start pushing this, make it a regular topic of conversation, you'll will it into existence. Because right now, things are not good, right? All right, so quick positive thing. Firstly, we got 3 options in Canada, right? And those of you who are in the United States, you have many of us here who love you. And uh, we have many of us here who love you. We're supportive of you, and we love having a strong relationship with our cousins in America. That has not changed despite our idiot politicians. All of them, all sides who are, trying to sow this division as they always are. We're all on the same team, sort of thing. And I think most Americans would like to see Canada thrive and have a strong partnership, right? Because they're very worried about our stupidity, and God forbid introducing Canadian voters into the American Electoral College. They're not going to allow that happen either, right? But we have the ability to speak up and push back like never before, right? We have X, which is the free speech platform. So now you can go troll people and have some, entertain yourself on Bluesky. And then you can just, what I would do, go to Bluesky, take snapshots on Bluesky and post them on X. They're hysterical. They're pretty wild. Yes, Maureen. Maureen says people are so blinded by big bad Trump, the big bad Trump BS narrative. Yes, but that was intentional. That they created a painted word, and I'll talk about that in another stream, how they did that. But that was completely intentional. So we have the ability to push back. You can go on Bluesky and have a laugh at their expense, and it's gonna get warmer. I don't think we're gonna have polar temperatures all year. I mean, maybe we will. I don't know. Does that mean what happens to global warming if we have this polar ice thing and we end up not having a summer this year? Do we put global warming to rest, or do they just double down? Well, of course, they're just going to double down. They're going to say, oh, well, this is what we mean by global warming. We mean it's going to get cold because, I don't know, something jet stream or whatever they're going to make up and fabricate. But anyways, I think we're in a good position. And I want to thank all of you who are joining, and especially those of you who are putting comments in the chat. I still haven't refined the whole chat structure. I'm going to be working on this over time. It'll get better, I promise. But Lion Meadow, Heidi, Maureen, Beth, Jess, I don't see where I don't think you're here today. I think you're at church or something like that. That's usually where you are. But I want to thank all of you for posting your comments in here. And this is a perfect example, right? I brought up something and I didn't know, and you've brought up some content that is relevant for me to communicate here. Heidi says, my genes come from Sweden, and I'm so sad to see its state now. Yes, and I've always had personally, I've met many Swedish people in my travels around the world. They're always awesome. They're always great. Like, I don't know. I've never had. That was just so chill. People from Scandinavia broadly are just so super chill and really good people. And I hate to see. And they're kind people, so they don't. It's not political correctness. They're just polite, so they want to be accommodating. But it's just so frustrating to see what's happening to them. Oh, sorry. Name is actually Lynn. Okay, so it's Lynn with an ILNE. I apologize, Lynn. I will remember that from next. Oh, okay, you're from Montreal. I get that. All right, you're all amazing, and I love you all. This is going to be the last stream or the first stream of the week, and I'm going to be busy the next couple of days, the next few days. We're going to do the next stream on Friday, so we're going to continue Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think I've got somewhat of a system sorted out in my life that we can do this together, and I really appreciate those of you who can contribute, and we're going to continue more of this. Have an amazing few days. Be kind to people. Be patient, and try that little test with trying to spawn the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance with people around Epstein's comments on Israel. Don't do it to be cruel. Just do it to understand how people react to certain stimulus. It's one thing to say it, but to actually experience it, it's a completely different experience. It just changes how it's the first step in understanding something that I believe, and many people in that space will tell you, it's not what you say that matters. It's how what you say is received. That's what matters, which is, as I said last time, that was my dating advice for the day. Right? All right. I love you all. You're all the best. And we're going to talk to you all soon. And I'll try to get Discord sorted for all of you shortly. Thank you.